So it was about this time last year that I did a video on my budget bed rack for my truck, and I had found a great deal on this Pioneer platform and installed it. And the plan was to put some boxes on it to haul my camping and recovery gear. Well, here we are a year later, and basically the only thing I've been hauling around on this rack is this camping poop shovel. So the reality is, I actually carried all my camping gear in the back of my truck. I had a bin for all my recovery gear. I had another bin for my tent supplies and sleeping bag and things like that. And then I had another bin full of my camping stuff that I needed to cook. My stove, my dishes, things like that. I also had to get my Gazelle tent in there as well. It's a T4, and unfortunately, the T4 doesn't fit in the bed lengthwise. And to get it in there with the tailgate shut, you have to angle it. Now, angling that tent inside that bed with all those boxes in there was really a pain in the rear differential. So what I really started to think about is, why don't I make better use of this space here? I could move the rack up to the top, to the roof, and then I could have the space on the Billie Bars then for a rooftop tent, and then with the rack up here I could put the boxes that I was thinking about up here. Well, it was a great idea, and then I started to crunch the numbers. The boxes are about $350 for just a decent cheap pair. The bars to go across to mount the Pioneer rack are about $500 and some. And then the roof tent itself is probably a minimum of $1,500 to $1,600. And when I total all that up, I kind of needed the poop shovel. And that brings me back to right where I started a year ago. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the idea of putting boxes on the rack here, and I'll use that to hold my camping gear and my recovery gear. And I should have some extra space to haul some other things like firewood or other tools, and I'll definitely be able to keep the poop shovel. With the house needing a major HVAC update, I put the rooftop tent idea on hold and began looking online for a good value on boxes that would work for overlanding. I looked at several rifle box designs to keep a low profile, and I decided on these Pelican V700 Vault cases. At 39 inches wide, 17 inches deep, and 16 inches high, they were almost the perfect dimensions I had in mind for the rack. They're lightweight, dust-proof, crush-proof, and weather-resistant. Compared to other overland boxes, I was able to get 2 of these at a local farm supply store for just about the price of one premium overland box, like a Roam. These are designed to hold firearms and came loaded with foam, which I quickly removed. When I set them on the rack, I could see they were a great fit and still allowed room for carrying hand tools or anything else extra I'd like to strap to the rack. I liked that they had 6 latches and I could use a padlock on them for added security. So as you can see, once these boxes are mounted, there's going to be plenty of space for more tools, or a place to carry firewood, or even another Gazelle tent. Next, I wanted to make sure they were big enough inside, so I filled one with my recovery gear and the other with camping supplies. I was pleased to see I could get the air compressor and all my recovery straps in one box, and my sleeping bag, camp chair, and other camping needs in the other box, and still easily close the lids. To mount the boxes securely on the rack, I decided on 6 mounting points per box. I used 12 3/8 inch unistrut nuts, 12 3/8 washers, and 12 3/4 inch 3/8 Allen head bolts. First, I laid the boxes on the rack and lined the end facing the tailgate up with the last cross member of the Pioneer rack. I also had the opening side of the boxes line up with the rack edges. I then used painter's tape to mark where the T-slot channels of the rack lined up with the boxes. Second, I used a trick that helps me hang pictures on a wall to mark the distances between the T-slot channels. I ran some painter's tape parallel with the rack edge and marked the locations of the T-slots with a Sharpie pen. Next, I lined up my level with some molding points on the bottom of the case. I knew the inside of my level is now 6.5 inches from the Pioneer rack edge. I needed to be in at least 6 inches to make sure my unistrut bolts would be securely sitting inside the T-slot channels. I lined up my tape with the level, measured out the distance between the dots, and marked the bottom of the box with my second row of mounting points. Now, hoping I hadn't screwed up my measurements, I drilled 6 holes into the bottom of my boxes. Next, I needed to get the unistrut bolts into the Pioneer rack as close as possible, 6.5 inches from the edge for the outside row, 12 inches in for the inside row. Using a small screwdriver, I lined up the bolts with the holes in the boxes, and it looks like everything lined up just the way I planned. Next, using the big washers on the screws, I screwed the bolts down tight. I think with 6 mounting points, these boxes should be secure when loaded, even in the event of something like a bad collision. Now it's time to repeat all these steps to mount the second box to the other side of the Pioneer rack. So, well, alright, what do you think? I think they turned out pretty good. They're nice and secure on the truck, and they hold a lot of gear. They got my recovery gear up there, I got some camping gear up there. It's definitely going to make it easier to get my tent in the bed of the truck, that's for sure. And I got rid of 2 boxes that were normally in the bed of the truck, so I've got plenty of room now, or extra room, if I need to get firewood or carry something else, so that's definitely a plus. Now I need to go in and put some silicone over the bolts to make sure those boxes are nice and watertight. But otherwise, I think they look good, they're nice and secure, and they're definitely going to do the trick until I'm ready to make the move into a rooftop tent. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe helps me out too. That'd be wonderful. I'm aiming for 1,000. And don't be afraid to share. I always appreciate that too. So until the next project, I will see you all down the road. Take it easy.